Hi, my name is Jacqueline Newbold and I'm a watercolor artist and mixed media artist. I'm working on an online video workshop with Artful Gatherings, and it is called The Good, the Bad, and the Beauty of Color. And it's all about watercolor. And part of it is I'm going to go over supplies, and I thought maybe if you are new to watercolor, you may be interested in knowing what supplies I use and what I would recommend for a beginner watercolorist. I actually have partnered with an art supply store called Daniel Smith. They're out of Seattle, and they make great, wonderful line of watercolors. I highly recommend them. I also recommend Winsor Newton. But I partnered with them to put together a kit for beginners and for people who like to travel and paint like I do. So I'm just going to go over those supplies with you, and if you're just starting out, you will get a great idea of what you need. I'm going to show you what is in the Daniel Smith Jacqueline Newbold traveling kit, but even though you don't buy the kit, it will give you a really good idea of what you will need to get started on your watercolor journey. First, you're going to get the Arches watercolor book. I really love these books. This is an example of one of mine. I always decorate the cover and just fill it with little watercolor sketches and journaling. I add items to it and I just have fun with it. I do watercolor washes and then my journaling on top for different trips that I've done. Here's just some examples of my style of watercolor painting and my journals. Just went to Italy, so here's a few from Italy. Here's a page that's still waiting to be finished. So I do really enjoy those. They have really good watercolor paper in them, much better than the Strathmore journals that you can get at Michael's. This is a watercolor palette. Usually they're blue, but if you're lucky, maybe you'll get a pink one like this. I like it because it has this gasket in it, and so if your paints are wet and they might start oozing around in your palette, but the gasket will keep it in the palette. It also has this removable tray for extra mixing, and I like to make a watercolor example of all the colors that I've put in the palette, and I just write the name of the color and the manufacturer and then have it laminated at Staples or one of the office supply stores, and then I can also do some little watercolor studies. And if you're going to take my online workshop, I'll go over this a little bit more in detail. So that's the palette you get, and it will be empty. When it arrives, all these wells will be empty, but you will get 12 colors, all Daniel Smith. These are great colors. I picked them out myself. I picked out cools, cool yellows, warm yellows, cool reds, warm reds. I made this kit so that it would represent a color for every color on a paint for every color on the color wheel. So here's an example of these colors painted on a little color wheel, and you can see that I've got them matched pretty well. That's why I like this color wheel, because I can see through the little holes. You don't get the color wheel, but I do recommend having a color wheel in your art kit. So you'll get 12 tubes of paint, and these will last quite a long time. They're very high quality paint. They're not the student grade. That means they have more pigment, so you'll get brighter and more colorful paintings than if you bought student grade paint. You'll get 2 watercolor brushes. You will get a watercolor brush holder, which I highly recommend. This protects your tips, so after you're done painting, you can just slip your brushes into these little slots and they'll be safe. It also has this little zippered pouch that you can add your pencils and whatever your whatnots in, and this is great for traveling. It zips up. And then you'll get a kneaded eraser, and these work great. You just, every time you use them, you just knead them, and they're self-cleaning. They kind of warm up and get softer and softer, and so when you erase with them, they don't leave those little entrails that other pencil erasers leave. So they don't mess up your paper as much. They don't smear, and that will come in your kit. And that is everything besides a pencil and maybe a little water spritzer and a rag, all things you can get around the house. That's about it to get you started on your watercolor journey.